legalise assisted dying in England and Wales.
Many more months of debate and scrutiny by MPs and peers.
Well, the Liberal Democrat MP...
It is just coming up to 7:30. That means it's time to get the news, the travel and the weather where you are. Hello, this is Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Good morning, just after 7:30, Monday morning. And dangerous cladding will be fixed on all high-rise buildings on government schemes within the next 5 years. That is what is being promised today by ministers.
Let's speak now to the Bills. 7:48 exactly. Simon has the weather for us. Morning, Simon.
Morning, Sally. Morning.
Now, sniffer dogs are usually found looking for contraband at airports and train stations, but the government is now dispatching them to find pests that harm our forests.
Yeah, it's going up to 7 o'clock. Oh, hello. We've got the headlines in just a moment, but let's get the news, the travel and weather from our teams around the UK. Is that all right with you? Yeah,
Are we allowed? Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Hello, good morning. Here are headlines this Monday morning.
Changes if you are travelling to Spain. Now, at 13 minutes past 8, Simon is here with a look.
It's 8:15, and we're talking now about wearable tech. We're talking things like smartwatches, that kind of thing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes, many premium products claim to accurately track exercise routines, body temperature, heart rate, menstrual cycle and sleep patterns. But many doctors remain cautious about just how useful the health data is. Explained how they use the data collected by their smartwatch or phone.
2 years ago, she got an alert saying maybe she had atrial fibrillation with her heart, needed to see a doctor. She said she didn't do anything about it. 2 weeks later, had a major stroke and is still suffering with unable to speak and poor memory. She said, maybe I should have listened to the watch.
This from Darren. In early 2022, I purchased a smartwatch. For the first 6 months, I received constant low heart rate notifications during my sleep. Numerous follow-up tests later, it turns out I was born with a damaged heart valve.
Chris says on Saturday, my Apple Watch reported that I'd taken 5,000 steps between 8 o'clock in the morning and lunchtime, which is great. But I was sitting down all that time working on the checkout at the local supermarket.
Oh.
It seems my watch was just registering my arm movement, but not my steps.
So, yes.
Yeah.
See you soon. Apparently, we're not quite... The tree's not quite in the middle. We need to sit slightly differently. No, no.
That way. Sticking out behind my head.
You get it wrong every day, you know that, don't you?
We'll try and get it right. Let's get the news, travel and weather where you are. Would you mind left a bit?
Hello, this is Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
It's 8:33 and it's 10 years now since the government introduced shared parental leave.
It was supposed to give couples more choice after the birth or adoption of a child, but take-up is still pretty low. Peter has been in...
And also the stigma.
I think people are just frightened to even try.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, 10 years on, clearly what was hoped hasn't happened.
Yeah, Peter, thank you.
If it's complicated and it might change, then when do you get your head around it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Pete, thank you very much indeed.
Now, it is just coming up to 20 to 9. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News.
Can you believe it is 30 years since the boy band E17 released their Christmas classic, Stay Another Day?
It was written by band member Tony Mortimer and raced to the top of the charts, beating Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. That one, remember?
That's quite a claim.
To the #1 slot.
Tony is back with a very special rendition of that song, a very personal reason behind it. He'll join us in just a second, but first let's remind ourselves, as if we need reminding, of what made the original so special.
And indeed the start of yours is on track to miss the original 2035 target that had been previously set. What makes you think, and how can you reassure our viewers this morning that you will hit a target in 2029 instead?
Morning.
Now talk about maybe the people who are living in one of those buildings and are watching us from there this morning. In the latest government stats, 70% of residential buildings over 11 metres in height haven't actually had their works finished. So they might have been started, but they're not finished. And the figure is even worse for social housing. That's today, the 2nd of December. And the MasterChef presenter Greg Wallace has been criticised for saying the complaints about his alleged misconduct have come from a handful of middle-class women of a certain age.
He steps aside from presenting MasterChef last week after a BBC News investigation revealed allegations of inappropriate sexual comments and behaviour, which he denies. Here's the latest from our culture correspondent, Noor Nanji.
5%. How are you going to fix that? The work that started but is nowhere near completion.
Well, what we know...
Specific about what those penalties might... The Health and Safety Executive say work on all of these buildings should be underway by April 2026 and that you are simply being too slow and unambitious. About another BBC story that we're running today about your planning targets, the flagship plan to build 1.5 million homes in England over the next 5 years. We're hearing reports this morning that is being called unrealistic and impossible to achieve by the local councils that you are expecting to help you do this. Just your reaction to that. Annual target for house building. You're setting a target for the end of the Parliament. Why is that? Good morning. It is Monday, the 2nd of December. And the MasterChef presenter Greg Wallace has been criticised for saying the complaints about his alleged misconduct have come from a handful of middle-class women of a certain age.
He steps aside from presenting MasterChef last week after a BBC News investigation revealed allegations of inappropriate sexual comments and behaviour, which he denies. Here's the latest from our culture correspondent, Noor Nanji.
Brain rot, the result of mindlessly scrolling through social media, has been chosen by the Oxford University Press as its word of the year.
Wouldn't know. No experience of that whatsoever. The annual competition tries to reflect current moods and trends, with previous winners including Riz and climate emergency. Trying to sound cool when I say this.
You nearly did it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, to help us understand a bit more about what brain rot actually is, we're joined by Catherine.
Minutes past 9. We're going to be talking about the word of the year in a moment. But first, let's get the news, the travel and weather where you are.
President Biden has pardoned his son Hunter a fortnight before he was due to be sentenced for firearms offences and tax evasion.
The final seats in the Irish general election are expected to be filled later today. Only a small number of seats actually separate the three major parties. But at the moment, it looks like Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are best placed to form a coalition government.
Well, our correspondent Katrina Perry...
Unlikely used car salesman for you. The former boss of Formula One, Bernie Ecclestone, is selling off all 69 of the Formula One racing cars in his collection. What a collection.
Now, it is 14 minutes past 9. Let's go to Simon, who has the...
It's 7:42. John joins us.
Hello, this is Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Good morning. Just after 7:30, Monday morning. And dangerous cladding will be fixed on all high-rise buildings on government schemes within the next 5 years. That is what is being promised today by ministers. It's just after 9:15.
Rugby league legend Kevin Sinfield is taking on day 2 of his latest challenge to raise money and awareness for motor neurone disease.
It's his 5th epic fundraiser, this time, of course, in memory of his late teammate and dear friend Rob Burrow, who passed away from MND earlier this year.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
It's 9 o'clock morning. Here are our headlines. 6 minutes past 9, let's look at some of this morning's other news and 2 big housing stories for you. An overwhelming majority of local authorities in England have cast doubt on the government's plan to build 1.5 million new homes. The new plan will ensure all high-rise blocks are made safe by the end of the decade. Should we speak to...
President Biden has pardoned his son Hunter a fortnight before he was due to be sentenced for firearms offences and tax evasion. The former boss of Formula One, Bernie Ecclestone, is selling off all 16... The former boss of Formula One, Bernie Ecclestone, is selling off all 69 of his F1 racing cars in his collection. To buy all of them in one go, they've got to be separated, surely.
Lots of not terribly careful previous owners. 17 minutes past 7. Simon's with us this... again. Yeah. Get used to it. Now, it's 20 past 7, and on Friday, a landmark day, MPs voted in favour of proposals to